My name is Stephen Scovasso, and I am the founder of the SAS Performing Arts Company, and I'm thrilled to host today's chat with two people who I admire greatly. And to be honest, I have a hard time calling diva. Eve Queller is an American conductor and the Artistic Director Emeritus of the Opera Orchestra of New York. She founded the Opera Orchestra in 1971 after having worked on the staff of the Metropolitan Opera and the New York City Opera. She is notable for her advocacy for and conducting of lesser known and less frequently performed operas such as Wagner's Rienzi and Janacek's Jenůfa, and the many formerly lesser known works of the bel canto composers Rossini, Donizetti, and Bellini. Deborah Surdi is an experienced singer, voice teacher, and coach, as well as an executive and consultant in the music and concert presenting business. As a singer, she performed for many years in both local and regional opera companies in the tri-state area. Her roles include Mimi, Musetta, Fiordiligi, Tosca, Rosalinda, and Cho-Cho-San, just to name a few. Name a few. I went 10, and I'm naming a few. For the bulk of her working career, she held various positions at RCA Records, BMG Classics, and Sony Classical. With her last position, Lynn, can I ask you please to get off the video? I got it.
Good.
She was Vice President of Artists and Repertoire. Former Executive Director of the Opera Orchestra of New York, Deborah is currently working in executive capacities with the Martina Arroyo Foundation and the Queen's Symphony Orchestra, and I've asked her numerous times that whatever she's taking to keep her so active, I want a gallon of, because it's amazing. I want to welcome you both to this new season of Diva Chat. So for the next 90 minutes or so, I will refer to you as our divas. I want to ask our audience to please keep your video off until I open the floor for questions. And I want to let you know that we are taping this for webcast on our YouTube channel, as well as a future podcast. I will be also playing quite a few musical excerpts which are representative of the work of Opera Orchestra New York and Maestro Queller. So we're going to start now, and let me formally introduce Maestro Queller. She was born in New York City and attended the High School of Music and Art and then the Mannes School of Music, where she studied piano and conducting. A Martha Baird Rockefeller Fund grant enabled her to pursue further studies in conducting with Joseph Rosenstock, an accompaniment, or as we call it now, collaborative pianist, with Paul Ulanowski and Paul Burrell. She also participated in master classes with Walter Susskind and Leonard Slatkin in St. Louis, and Igor Markevich and Herman Blumstedt in Europe. Although primarily dedicated to Opera Orchestra of New York, she has appeared as guest conductor with numerous opera companies and orchestras internationally, including the Mrzinski Theater, Opera Australia, the National Theater in Prague, and the Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires. Maestro Queller has also appeared in symphonic programs with the Philadelphia Orchestra, the Montreal Symphony, the Cleveland Orchestra, the Edmonton Symphony, and the Honolulu Symphony Orchestra, among others. And I'm sorry if I've neglected to put in one or two more. You are also the recipient of a 2010 National Endowment for the Arts Opera Honors Award. So we're very pleased to have you join us, and thank you so much. What I'd like to do is have you talk to us briefly about your studies as a child and the piano, your work with the New York City Opera and the Met, and ultimately, how did you get the opera bug?
Listening to the radio on Saturdays at 1 o'clock which I still do. I listen to the Met and other international opera broadcasts. That was the first, my first, and I carried that through all the way through high school, including boyfriends who came over and tried to talk to me and didn't succeed because I was busy. I was busy. By the time I got through high school, I started to buy the scores so I could follow the score while I listened to the radio, and then started to play them on the piano. And as soon as I could, I started doing some accompanying of voice lessons for voice teachers, which was interesting because there's a lot of repertoire I didn't know and had to fake my way through a little bit, sight reading. But you do that in opera companies too, when, you know.
Oh, sorry, keep going.
Oh, okay, I got distracted. When I don't see your face, I know I don't know who I'm talking to. So as I got a little bit finished with high school, I started going to my high school at Music and Art. We were able to get tickets to the score desks at the Met, where we could watch our scores and watch the conductor. You couldn't really see the stage, but you could see the orchestra, and you see learn all the time.
That's true. That's true. I've sat up there many times.
Slowly, the jobs started to come through. People needed a pianist for something, and finally, I accompanied at the Manor School, the opera workshop. Felix Popper, who was conducting that, was managing it, liked the way I played the piano, and he asked me to come down to New York City and audition for Julius Rudel, who hired me to be an accompanist at the New York City Opera. Very early, when I knew, I knew the first act of Bohème and the third act of something else. I didn't really know the repertoire, and again, you learn it quick.
And then I also know, because I read your book, and for anybody who is interested in a very interesting reading, it's called The View from the Podium, and it's a wonderful read. It really talks about your view of working with all these people, but it also talks about, and we've talked about this a little bit, about the couple of doors that you really had to push hard to go through because you were a woman.
Well, actually, I feel like I didn't push. If somebody passed a remark, nobody's going to hire you because nobody's women. I never argued with it, just if I didn't have a job, I started an orchestra, and I didn't have to worry about whether I was hired or not. I started an orchestra which was totally volunteer. I don't know how I found all these people, but they were thrilled to come and play and learn the opera repertoire, because nobody was teaching opera repertoire to orchestra players. They were teaching symphonies, all the schools, but
No, that's true.
you didn't get that opportunity. And so I offered that, and I had several years of doing free concerts in a public school of repertoire, and offered singers from the Metropolitan Opera Studio. I was an accompanist at the studio. Actually, was never accompanist for the Met Opera. I was an accompanist for the studio. And a lot of those singers were happy to come and try out their Mimis and Rodolfos and whatevers. So that also at New York City Opera, where I was an accompanist, a lot of the repertoire, a lot of the singers had to actually go do a performance without any orchestra rehearsal. If you were the second cast in Bohème, you had to go on without an orchestra rehearsal, and that is pretty scary.
Yeah, it's true.
We were filling in all of these slots in this school, and slowly, just what I was doing drew the attention to some people on the Met National Council, and they started to come and watch my performances. And soon I had some offers. I had offers to study, and at the Rockefeller Foundation paid for me to learn how to conduct so that I could continue what I was doing. And after a while, performances in this school, I mean, the Toscas and Butterflies and Bohèmes, one of the members of the National Council said, maybe you would like to go into a more professional atmosphere. And we went into town hall. He generously donated the rental fee in town hall. And that performance, which was Don Giovanni, got New York Times coverage and very nice, encouraging reviews. And so slowly people got interested, and funds came through for me to eventually graduate to a professional orchestra doing operas in concert in Carnegie Hall. And once I moved to Carnegie Hall, it was no longer the Bohèmes and the Butterflies. I had to do something that the Met was not doing. And that's when the rare operas started.
Well, that was, the beginning there was 1972, correct?
Right, yeah.
And do you want to talk about that first opera?
William Tell.
Right. Why did you choose William Tell?
Well, again, I was an accompanist to Friends of Friends opera, and they did operas with Nikolai Gedda, with Richard Tucker, and I got to know these great singers. And I asked them if they would consider singing an opera in Carnegie Hall with me. I was a new conductor. I didn't have a lot of name or experience. And they both basically said yes. Richard Tucker said, "Sure, kid." And Nikolai Gedda said, "Whatever you want, pick it from my repertoire list." And the bottom of his list is William Tell, and I didn't know William Tell was an opera. I knew it was an overture that I liked. And so I picked William Tell. And that's how the first William Tell got done in a long time. And
I want to at least start our excerpts with a little bit of that William Tell overture.
Wow.
So I'm going to keep this little bit of a box because I have a couple of other excerpts. So then you decided to do go in a little different direction with Richard Tucker. What made you choose L'Africaine?
Well, he knew the aria, O Paradiso, and he thought it would be nice to get the rest of the opera into his voice. And so he picked that opera, and it was a big thrill because he learned it. He learned it in my studio, and it was a big thrill.
Well, I can tell you that I actually heard Richard Tucker once in my lifetime in an Aida at the Met. And it was with Lucina Mara and Matteo Managuera, who I know you've worked with.
Oh.
And once you hear that voice in person, it's a sensation that I don't think you ever forget. That was a voice you never, ever forgot. And I know that he loved this aria, so we're going to just hear a little bit of O Paradiso, just a little bit. Now, as you could tell, these recordings, a lot of them are private recordings, but I think without them, these evenings would have been just memories, and they're actually live happenings that we can hear them. Then I know that Nikolai Gedda unfortunately took sick for your debut performance with Opera Orchestra of New York. So you got him back. And what did you decide to do at that point?
Well, that was Pearl Fishers. These days, Pearl Fishers.
And with a wonderful cast.
It was, yes, tell me the cast again.
Renato Prusson and the late Christianetta Pierre, who just recently left us. And that is such a beautiful opera. And again, not done as often as it should be. The Met just recently is starting to put it in their repertoire occasionally. How did you approach the orchestral writing there to work with the singers? I'm interested in that.
How did I approach
To accompany them.
writing? Well, the acoustic in Carnegie Hall is really a very good one. And so you have the singer right at my shoulder, the orchestra behind the singer, and the singer's quite close to the audience, and they can hear the resonance themselves. And so balancing it is not as difficult as it could be. And also the orchestration of the Bizet's orchestration is very supportive of the voice. A lot of strings and woodwind solos, only solos, not playing as part of the accompaniment, you know. And so he lets the voice soar over the accompaniment, and I was happy to do that. But accompanying Nikolai Gedda in the aria from the Pearl Fishes, I can only say that as I listened to it, as I was conducting it, I kept saying, please God, don't let me ruin this. It's so beautiful. It just to support it, but not get
In the way. Get
in the way, you know. We don't hear you. We have to put you back on.
Sorry. As when we spoke, the one thing you have to be very careful of, especially in the duet, is it doesn't get ponderous. That it moves and it has a flow, and it just feels like water. And you did that. You did that, and I'm going to play a little bit of that Pearl Fishes duet. I kept some of that.
Something out before we leave this duet. If you listen carefully to the way Gedda used the words to tell me how he was going to go ahead to the next part, and instead of saying D, he'd go D. Is before it. I try to teach singers how to do that because it gets you beforehand, because the conductor has to give an upbeat, so Gedda gave you the upbeat with the language.
Well, that's a great trick. The thing that I also want to say is, because you presented these works with these singers who would not have sung this repertoire here in New York if it wasn't for your performances, but the audience, how receptive the audience is. I mean, those ovations were just mind-boggling, I would think.
It was
to be on that stage with hearing these voices sing and then these ovations. I mean, that's just incredible. That doesn't happen often, except I guess it happened a lot with you, and we're going to see that.
Yeah.
Another great singer, I mean, we're going to talk about the great singers you worked with, but another great singer who unfortunately left us all too soon was Montserrat Caballé.
Yeah.
Tell me about her and how you got to the Liceo.
Can I just show you this for a
Can
sec?
you see that?
Oh, yes. That's a great picture.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, that's a wonderful picture. I love in your book, you said when you met her the first time, she said she wanted to tip her chapeau to you.
Yes. Yes. I was doing something. I think I was at a rehearsal at Carnegie Hall maybe for the Pearlfishers. Somebody came up to me, somebody I didn't know, and said, Montserrat Caballé would like to meet you. Oh, you know, it was a great thrill. And so an appointment was arranged, and I went to her hotel. I knocked on the door, and she opened the door and said, I tip my chapeau to a lady conductor. I want to sing with you. That's what she said. And she pulled me into her room, and she knew exactly what she wanted to sing. She wanted to sing Parisina d'Este of Donizetti. And of course, I didn't know where it was, because in those days, it wasn't easy to secure the orchestra parts of these operas. For the William Tell, I actually went to Paris to the library of the opera, and I found the score there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have found the score at that point, at that time, 1952. And with the William Tell, I found an aria for Jemmy, which wasn't in my score. And then I had to, the librarian very graciously copied that aria for me with the orchestra score. And I translated it on the way home. And I put that aria in my performance of the William Tell. And now that aria is in there, an aria for Jemmy. It's not.
So tell me about your time at the Liceu with the Vespri Siciliani. I mean, that was your first, wasn't that your major debut in Europe?
I think yes, it must have been that or
1974.
London, La Favorita, maybe it was London. I'm not sure. I have to look at the date. It was close. It was close. My major debut in an opera company, yes, in Europe, yeah.
So what was it like for you there? I mean, I you also had Placido Domingo in the cast.
Also had Placido Domingo in the cast. Well, I knew Placido from the time he arrived at New York City Opera, because I was a pianist then, and I played the rehearsal the first time in my memory that Placido sang a rehearsal at New York City Opera was a run-through of Carmen. And I remember that very well because I was playing the piano, and I remember being able to watch his face when he sang, and the company was absolutely overwhelmed with the beauty of his voice. And I remember going home and telling Stanley, we have a new tenor and his name is Peaceful Sunday, and how this is going to happen, I can't tell you, because I can only say that this is a star voice and personality, which of course turned out to be. But at that time, we didn't know him, and actually he was borrowing money to go to someplace in Ohio. It's very early in his career. He was 27 around that age.
So one of the nice anecdotes in the book, or anecdotes in the book, is Montserrat Caballé, and what happened during her performances with you at the Liceo during the Bolero, Merce diletti amici.
Well, it was, you never knew what was going to happen with her, you know, but she was very comfortable with me, and I was comfortable with her. I knew she brought me there, and she wanted me to succeed, and there was never any woman conductor thing. There was none of that. None of that. There's great respect, you know. So in the Bolero, there are always possible confrontations and problems when you get to the staging of an opera and the conductor and the orchestra and the staging. There's always lumps that have to be overcome. And this was my debut, and I was nervous about it. And so we got to the bolero, and she is giving out these white flowers, white roses to everybody in the chorus. And I'm looking at it and conducting the bolero, and I'm looking, I'm saying, she has more flowers than their chorus members. What's going to happen? She's going to get angry with me because I didn't do something right about the flowers. You know, it's like thinking. And all of a sudden, at the very last note, the 3 flowers that were left in her hand, she threw them at me, and they landed on my music. And they were on the music. And the audience went wild because they all could see that. The Liceo had not that many seats downstairs, but all boxes and all upstairs. So everybody saw what she did, and they carried on, and they really, and then she kept gesturing to me that I should take it out. She kept doing this, you know.
Well, and besides, she sang
performance, and at the second performance, it landed on the first violist's head, the flowers, and then he handed the flowers to me again. So it was a whole routine that she instituted, that she's so comfortable on the stage that she could do things like that.
Well, we're going to hear a little bit of that bolero from that.
Wow.
You don't hear singing. That's just incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Okay, so let's go from one Spanish country to another Spanish country. Let's go to this is many years later. This is almost 30 years later. And you're in the Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires with a friend of mine, Jennifer Larmore. And you're doing Elisabetta Regina di Inghilterra, or as I call it, Barbara Seville 2.0. How did you come to that work? And I mean, obviously, it is, you know, there are stories about how Rossini would get commissions, and okay, well, listen, you know, that town is 50 miles away, 100 miles away. I'll just put different words. I mean, and we'll send them this opera, and they won't know the difference. So what did you think when you were working on that and you said, "Oh my God, this is the Barbara Seville" in a lot of different ways?
Yes, it's true. It's true. But it's different because I was doing my first time conducting this opera staged.
Mm-hmm.
The big difference to, of course, Vespi Siciliani was staged also. And
right.
very, very well staged. And obviously, from what you heard, there was no disagreement about when I had to see her, when she had to see me.
Right.
But in the Buenos Aires performance of this opera, stage was a little bit different in that when it came to staging the chorus, it was the chorus, I had a rehearsal with them, they were fine, we did fine, but when they were staged, there were big pieces of scenery that were in front of some people that they couldn't see me. They could not see the conductor. And when you have a chorus in a Rossini opera, which can't see the conductor, you know what? It's not going to be together.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Close.
Yeah.
Close. No cigar. Yeah. So
But
there's
you know
something else that I learned, you know, when I was there, and I did have meetings with the stage director and the staging people. I said, move the scenery so the singers can see me at certain points, at least, you know, some of them can see me.
Well, what I found amazing with this is that there are pieces of what we know as the Barbara Seville that Rossini actually had singing to. And one specific place that always struck me for this is the end of Act 1, where Leicester is sent for. The Queen offers to make him her consort, and upon his refusal, she accuses him of treason. But what she didn't know was that he was secretly married to Matilda. And the one thing, and then she, of course, has him arrested. The one thing is about Rossini, in the most dramatic moments, he's using music that you consider not very dramatic.
Not serious.
Not exactly, not serious. And this is one point of it. And for the people who are listening, if you know Barbara Seville, especially the overture, you will know this music.
I'd like to point out the beautiful acoustic of that theater. That we just heard.
Incredible acoustics of that theater. Of course, Jennifer Larimore was Elisabetta, and that was pretty spectacular also, you know. I believe the rest of the singers were Argentine. Is that true?
Yeah, they were all named Carlos.
Oh, yeah, well.
There's
They're
three. Yeah.
Believe me, they're either Carlos or Alberto. Believe me, I know by life that they're either named Carlos or Alberto. But incredible, and but I think there you could pick up a little bit of the fact of what you were saying about maybe being a little bit behind you, but it's really not even that noticeable.
Well, not in this particular number. It seemed okay.
Yeah. So Debbie, you've been quiet now. We're going to ask you a question, okay?
Okay.
This is before you became executive director, okay? What are your memories of Opera Orchestra of New York before you ever had the idea of working for them?
Interesting question. First of all, I remember it was so difficult to get a ticket. And many times I would be standing outside of Carnegie Hall and scalpers would come up to me offering tickets at exorbitant prices and I couldn't get in. But I do remember one night in particular, because it's a more recent memory, but I did go to performances when I was in school when I could afford it, because again, I was a kid, you know, just, I didn't have a lot of money.
Sorry.
That's okay. But I do remember going to see a Fanciulla del West with Aprile Milo. And I never forgot that performance. I remember one scene, I forget exactly what she did, and people just gasped and screamed, and it was phenomenal. It was just unforgettable. Yeah. So that was before I started working for Opera Orchestra. But I'm going to tell you a very funny story. I would go to a tailor on 72nd Street on the second floor, and across the hall from the tailor was the Opera Orchestra of New York office. Yeah. And I used to think, oh, look, Opera Orchestra is right here, not knowing that I'd ever be walking into that office and actually working with the company.
Well, that's really great. I think we all have those memories of not being able to get tickets. But the one thing I have to say is the beauty of having NPR tape the majority or a lot of the performances and broadcasting them. Absolutely. That gave us the intimacy of being there, even though we weren't physically in the auditorium. And I think that besides the private recordings, the broadcast recordings are such a legacy to the work. And of course, Aprile did wonderful work when she with Andrea Chenier and I Lombardi with Carlo Bergonzi, and then
I remember those as well.
Yeah, and then of course the Adriana Lecouvreur with Dolores Zajic and the La Gioconda. So, you know, besides something else that we're going to play a little later. Maestro Queller, you're the champion of works by Czech and Russian composers such as Smetana's Dalibor and Debussy. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Mussorgsky's epic Kovanchina. You did that way before the Met did it. Tchaikovsky's Mazeppa and the Maid of Orleans. Rimsky-Korsakov's The Tsar Bride. And Dvorak Rusalka, which was the American debut of Gabriela Benachkova. What moved you about these operas? What spoke to you about those operas?
Well, the first opera that this group I heard was Dalibor. And I heard it on a tape, one of these old tapes that we don't have anymore. And I don't know how I came about it, but I did listen to it, and it was playing. I don't know which part of it was playing, and my husband walked by and he said, "Oh, that's beautiful. Can you do that opera? Well, that was all I needed to hear, you know, that he was not a musician. He was a lawyer. He was very smart, and he didn't have that good an ear, but he heard this something that was in there, and you can't explain it. I can't explain it. The emotional feeling that I received from listening to Dalibor. And so immediately, again, I had to go looking for the orchestra materials, and thank you for the wonderful Nikolai Geta agreed to sing it in Czech. And once Nikolai agreed to sing it in Czech, everybody wanted to sing it in Czech. And so it was a big success. And I used that name for my email, and I have to spell it for everybody because nobody knows what a Dalibor is. But a Dalibor is the name in Czech, and there is a Daliborka in Prague, which is it's where Dalibor was stationed to stay there, and they actually have a place called the Daliborka, and so that's how I got started in the Czech repertoire. And I then got interested in doing the others that are pseudo more popular. And I tried to get Gabriela Benachkova for the Dalibor, and we had actually gotten her to agree to it. And then the government wouldn't let her go, and they selected the substitute who they sent. And I had to do it. I had to do it with her. But in one of my engagements, I forget where I was conducting. I was conducting in Spain. I thought I'm going to go to Prague, and I'm going to find her and find out what happened. So I did. I went to Prague. I was able to find her and say what happened. And she said, un giorno dicevo non va. One day they said, I don't go. And I went with her to the theater for listening to a rehearsal of, she was rehearsing 2 other Czech operas. And I said, I'm going to ask you, will you come? She said, this time I will get there. I will get there. And then we did the whole series of what operas I did with her. You probably know.
Well, you did Lebuse, you did Rusalka, which was her American debut, and Jenova.
Right, and Rusalka then became something that the Met adopted with
Right.
Renee. Yeah, which is, I'm very happy about that because it's a gorgeous piece. Beautiful.
Well, let's hear a little bit of Gabriela Benachkova and your performance of Rusalka at Carnegie Hall on May 6, 1987. Okay, I'm going a little bit out of order right now because we have a guest here that I'm going to ask to come on. And Aprile Milo, will you unmask and come on so you can talk to us? I know you have to leave. Can you get your video going? Are you there? I hope you are. Is she there?
Yeah, she's there. I think she's unmuted.
Unmuted, I'm waiting for the video.
Oops.
Aprile, are you there? Well, while we're waiting for her to come, because she can only stay till 2 o'clock, talk to us about how you met Aprile and then subsequently used her for like 5 or 6 different presentations that you did.
Well, my friend and colleague Liz Cole had heard Aprile and said to me, you need to hear this singer. And so she invited Aprile and me to her home, and Aprile sang for me, and I was totally knocked out by the gorgeous voice. And she's only, what, 27? I mean, young girl. She had not done very much. She was covering at the Met, but she hadn't gone on. And what was I doing that I hired her to cover?
I was William Hotel.
There she is, Guillermo Tell.
William Tell, my second William
Yes, she-
Tell, right? And so she agreed to cover the second William Tell. And we did a performance. We were doing performances for our covers with orchestra, which was also incredible. I just needed money to get the orchestra to these places. And we did a performance in the Bronx, and Aprile sang this incredible performance, and she interpolated in the second act in the ensemble, not in an aria. She interpolated E flat, which I didn't know she was going to put in. So I had this kind of surprise, okay. And of course the audience, my audience knew E flat when they heard one, you know, and they appreciated her. And then of course there was no question that she was going to be in operas with me at Carnegie Hall, and there she is. And
Yes, she is. Well, I was at very quickly, and then I'll let really speak. I was also at a performance where she did the same thing at the Met, and yes, and she's laughing about it with an Aida, and she interpreted a high E flat, I would imagine. I think it was at the end of the triumphal scene, and the story goes that Nello Santi was just like frozen or something, but it was spectacular. I mean, it just, everybody went, I have never heard an ovation like that. Everybody went absolutely crazy.
It was a lot of fun, but I have to tell you, Mr. Scovasso, this afternoon having a conversation with Maestro Eve Queler and Debbie Surdi is like a piece of history. And it's a piece of history we should embrace and we should hug every single time we can, because they are living exponents of what it means to have opera alive. They found all these magnificent operas to present. Eve has given so many memorable evenings that are just still so vivid in the memory of all of the New York public. And she also gave an enormously important area for young people with her Young Artist program to have a chance to get their feet wet and also to present their cards to the American New York public. So Eve, you are incredible. You remain really a treasure, a national treasure.
Thank you.
And I love you both. Debbie, same thing. It's that kind of competence and understanding about voice at the head of a musical society is very important. We're seeing the negative side of that, where people are not musically inclined, where they sit in the front row in order to see whether you look good on camera, instead of whether you're heard in a theater. So that is something very important to remember, that, you know, opera is about voice. Without voice, it's a symphony. And this woman did everything she could to keep it alive and thrilling. And I was so thrilled. When I first came and sang for you, I
Well,
was so
I was so
scared.
lucky
I
that
was so scared.
I found you. I was so lucky, you know.
We've had
Well,
many great. I can
unfortunately,
never thank you enough.
well, we are going to play. I have one other excerpt, but then we're going to play the very end of Il Pirata that you did
Oh,
with
wow.
her. And but I had one excerpt before that. Um, but you did so many wonderful performances with her. I mean, is there one that you say that for you stands out
That's
above the
hard. It's like
rest?
choosing among children because
I know, isn't it
anything
true?
done with Eve was like family. And
Well,
her people around her were
first
like
thing to do
family.
E. Lombardi with Bergonzi, that,
The
but
Guglielmo Tell was the first. The Lombardi was the breakout performance for me.
yeah, he was
It were the really
wonderful.
great performances. But for me,
Yeah.
Chenier with Milanov in the house.
Right.
And she came, it was the last thing she saw. She sat in the back row, which was very uncharacteristic of her because she always gave me the beehive in the front. And so I thought, oh, I was very honored to have her there. And that was for my father. There's a running motif of my family in her situation because I felt like I was in a family. And then the one that I did that was my mother's last thing that she ever heard me sing
Yeah.
was Minnie. And
Can we
she
show
said,
you a
I
photo?
don't know if you'll see me. Yes, exactly. Oh, I would love to get that.
I'll scan it and get it to you,
No,
April.
that's so
That's
spectacular
with
with
you and
Carl
Carl
Tanner.
Tanner, right?
Carl Tanner,
Carl
fantastic.
Tanner,
Yeah.
yeah.
And she sat in the fourth or fifth row, and she said, "I don't know if you'll see me, but she wore what looked like a Lohengrin outfit in total silver and lame." It was. I said, "Mom, you're hard to not see." But when she stood up, and she was at the last stages of cancer, she stood up to give me applause. The entire audience disappeared. I just saw my mom.
Yeah.
Our audience
I'll
was
never forget
so,
it.
and they were like a family.
It was amazing. I will never know how to say thank you enough. Also, Richard Bonning said to say thank you to you because he always felt I should sing more bel canto pieces. And she was really the only one that gave me that chance because Jimmy wasn't terribly in love with bel canto. It wasn't his cup of tea, although he did it exceptionally well, like he did everything well. But she brought me into a fantastic world of music that I then got to share with the public that didn't know I could do it. So again, I can't say thank you enough. What a wonderful idea for a show. I hope you have a part two.
Well, I it was I think days I went through. I told my Shaquella, I have about 85 of her performances, and to go through them to try to come down with only a couple of excerpts.
It's hard.
Do you remember when they applauded straight through the intermission for Bonachkova and
I
for
have
Ruznik?
that's the next excerpt. It's
Was that
funny as you
funny?
bring it up.
Now, do you
That
have this? You're recording this, right? So that I can see all that you have done? Because I
Yeah,
unfortunately
yeah.
have
This
to
is going to
leave.
be a webcast, and it's going to be a podcast. And
I can
I've
get a
had,
copy.
yeah, well, yes, and it'll be on our webpage. And I hope I can get you to do one with us also.
Oh, I'd be very honored, but I mean, really, today you have somebody. This is like nothing you'll ever experience. God bless you, Eve. God bless you, Debbie. I love you to pieces, and Mr. Scovasso, bravo,
Well, thank you
bravo.
so much.
God
I
bless
really
everybody.
appreciate you
Stay
coming.
safe.
And please be in touch, and we'll create a time to do one of these.
Okay.
Okay. So now, speaking of that she brought up about the audience applauding through, I'm actually going to play that.
Oh,
I found that to be absolutely amazing. Let's be honest about one thing. Leonie Riesnick was a force of nature. There is no other way of calling that. I mean, starting with her scream at the end of Act One of Die Valkyrie when Siegmund pulled out the sword, to her scream when she went out in Act Three of Lohengrin as Orchard. This woman, besides being phenomenal, that you couldn't take your eyes off of her, and just a force of nature, she was phenomenal. And I'm going to play that point. And then I just want to ask you very quickly how you felt. I mean, with just standing there with that. Hold on one second. Here she is.
Yeah.
The only reason they're can Yenuf. Well, of course, that went on a lot longer. That went on the whole intermission.
Whole intimate.
Incredible, incredible. You are noted for having a wonderful ear for young singers. Some of the singers you work with, Ruth Ann Swenson, that you found, Aprile, as we mentioned, Renee Fleming, Frank Lepardo. You brought us Rainer Goldberg. You gave us Dmitry Khovrostovsky, Tatiana Troyanos, and of course now Latanya Moore. We were going to run a little short on time, so I want to make sure that I get another question to Debbie, and then we're going to open it up for questions. But I have to play this for Aprile, the very end of the Il Pirata, because this is just more spectacular singing. Oh, God. I don't know if I can even go one more. Debbie, real fast. What's your greatest memory? You told me for your time with the city after you became the executive director, which I wish we had more time to talk about that. But tell me your greatest memory of working at Opera Orchestra and the greatest memory you have of a performance.
Okay, I actually have two. The first one was the first opera that I produced for Opera Orchestra, which was the oh my goodness, I just had the name, but I remember sitting in the first box at Carnegie Hall, just sitting there, and I burst into tears when I saw the audience walk in, and at the downbeat, it was like giving birth for me. But my greatest vocal memory was Mariella De Villa in her last Roberta Devereaux, and the final note, the final ovation. I mean, the whole evening was magnificent, but that night was unbelievable, and it had the excitement and all of the anticipation of like the old days at OONY. I mean, you could feel the excitement in the lobby before the performance. So it was so memorable for me.
Yeah, I was at that performance, and it was phenomenal. And phenomenal. That's a cross between phenomenal and fabulous. So I got that for you. All right, here it comes.
Okay.
And again, it's a private recording, so it's a little far.
Stephen, the thing about, well, first of all, the first opera was I Due Fosteri. But the thing about De Villa, the thrilling thing, is that she was 65 years old when she
I think she
sang.
was older than that. I think she was almost 70.
Was she?
Yeah, I think she was almost 70.
Okay, maybe she was almost, but it's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I remember that she held all the high notes. She didn't really sing the high notes until that last one,
But
but spectacular.
I mean,
And
spectacular singing at any age.
yes, extremely, and technically, and the stylistically. That's the one thing we haven't talked about really is stylistically. But I'm going to open the audience to questions, but very quickly, what's your outlook on opera singers today? I'm not talking about, we all know the stories about everything else. I'm talking your view on opera singing today.
Singing,
Singing.
not singers.
Singing.
Not singers, but singing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get into singers. That's very subjective.
Well, I think that all the examples are there, and the chances are not as good as they have been in the past, to be heard. And I think that we need to refocus on what is bel canto, what is
Right. I think that's a very, very good point.
expression through the coloring of the voice of bel canto, as the people that you've just played now to show that. I mean, one of the spectacular things of Mariella de Villa, that Prile Nilo, is they color to how they feel about the music. Not only can they specifically sing it incredibly well, but it's also a different coloration for expression, for the emotion that is a very important part of the kind of opera that we're talking about now. We're not talking about theater. We're not talking about what the new operas that will be coming forward, which will not have bel canto in them very much.
Right.
And that is the audience responds to. What is it that the audience responds to about this coloring of the voice, about this?
Well, the words.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
But I also think that, and for everything I played, why I chose it is because it got me viscerally. It
Right.
got me to a state that I say, wow, this is what it's all about. And I think that we don't have that.
Grips you emotionally.